slept in a bit the next day. Hamlet came in to wake me up between 9 and 10. Solar flare was still on, so none of my power was working. I ate my pemmican in the dark, but that wasn't the end of the world. Everything looked to be in good order with the power grid. I just had to wait it out. I decided to do something outside at that point. Get some more potatoes planted. I was thinking about heading out. There are some goodies nearby. Some poor person that need a rescue. It was still on my list of things to do yet. Seemed like it'd make for a little bit of adventure. I could help some people out. I did decide to mine some nearby jade. I could make myself some nice furniture or something with that. Some travelers passed by about that time. I didn't even walk over to say hi though. They seemed like a right decent bunch. I didn't have anything to offer though, so I let them go. I mined for a little while. Hamlet helped me out with the hauling. He's such a good dog. About that time, a rat stepped on one of my traps. Took it down. I wasn't going to complain about a little extra meat, much as I didn't really care for rat meat too much. But it was there. Decided to cook some of that up right away. Then I chilled out for a while. Power was back and that was good. Sure did like this nice little place I'd built. I felt safe. My clothes are getting a little bit worn out. I took a couple holes in it. That was making me a little crabby, along with those people I'd sent on their way, as occasionally a guy gets lonely. Sat and thought about it. Decided I was going to build a little table, do some tailoring at. So I planned that while I ate my meal. Cooked a little more, and then it was off to bed. Didn't feel like a super busy day, but that's alright. I guess I'm in no rush here. As I slept, my mood seemed to tank out a little bit. All of a sudden I just didn't feel as happy as I did, but in the morning, right back to cooking. Last of that rat meat was taken care of. So I decided I'd get to constructing. There was still work to be done around here after all. I built my tailor bench next. It was time to get that trap rebuilt that that rat had wrecked. Didn't want to leave myself vulnerable. Carefully stepping over the other trap while I built. And it didn't take long. After that, I decided to make a new toque. That was definitely in order. As I was doing that, Hamlet came in, gave me a little nuzzle. Such a happy little fella. The new toque wasn't the best, but it was equivalent to the one I'd had before, just without the holes. So that was okay. I wasn't going to complain too much at this point. Time for another meal after that. And then I thought I'd get back to a little bit of mining. Didn't take long to get all that jade mined out. Then I decided to haul it all in. Didn't want to leave it laying, unless one of these pirates come along and steal it off me. And then at that point, I decided I was going to head out. See what was going on near me. I didn't like these pirates having a base nearby, so I could deal with that. Made sure to take plenty of food, what medicine I had in case I got hurt, a little bit of drugs to keep me awake should I get too sleepy on the road. I decided to leave my silver. Didn't plan on doing any buying, and it would just slow me down. So with that, I was ready to start gathering up my stuff, get on out of here. Took one last quick look around, surveyed the outside of the base. Then I decided, alright, it's time to gather this crap and be on my way. And that's just what I did. Made sure my gun was clean, in good shape. Fair chance I was going to need it. Fortunately, I was near the road. Makes for quick walking. And in no time, I'd arrived. As I showed up, I scanned it out. Some fella standing around with a club. It didn't seem like much of a threat to a guy with a gun. So I wasn't terribly worried. I did set up a little area. Told Hamlet to go over there. Didn't want him to get hurt. That would be most upsetting. So he scampered off. And I went over to say hi to this fella. And Buddy showed up. Turns out he had a knife, which still wasn't going to do him much good. I was right lucky to have gotten this pistol off that dude. Dirty old pirate that he was. So I hid out by their door. Eventually he came out. I gave him the business. First time I shot him, square in the jaw. He wasn't moving too quick. Seemed to have some old injury in his foot. He was coming at me. I was giving him the business pretty good. His buddy was significantly faster than me. I decided to focus, taking that one guy down, so the other one would just run away. That's exactly what happened. As he was running away, I did my best to take him out. But, alas, he had escaped. I let him go, though. Silver was the name of that fella I'd dropped. His clothes were all in pretty shabby shape. He had a right fancy buffalo wool cowboy hat on, but it wasn't in the best of shape. I stripped him regardless, because that's what I do, these stupid pirates. They had all kinds of stuff around, stuff I could make use of as a man who needs building components, steel, whatnot. First I decided to check out what they were hiding inside the building they had built. Wasn't a bad building at all, actually. They had a whole lot of beds for just a couple fellas. And the people that originally had messaged me about this base had already sent me my goodies, so they were waiting back home. The beds were all made of stone. There wasn't going to be much I could do about taking one of them with me. I called Hamlet over about that time. No sense leaving him trapped. I didn't stay long, though. Packed up as much as I could right away. Decided to get myself back on the road. Didn't want to be away from home too long. Sadly, I couldn't really take much of anything. His clothes weren't in the best shape, weren't the best in the first place, so I left him. Found a little bit of silver laying around. They had some lamps. Thought maybe I could make use of those. And after a little bit of debate, decided that was about as good as I was gonna get. Still had darn good amount of food, so I decided I'd see if I could set that prisoner free that was nearby. Didn't make sense for me to leave these guys imprisoning someone right next to my home. Some random fella appears to have wandered into my home while I was gone. Wildcat, more animal than man. Running around naked with his junk flopping. Wasn't much I could do about him at the minute. Maybe I'd help him out, since that is what I'm working on these days. So I made it to that prisoner camp. Constantin was the fella's name, turns out. Once again, I gave Hamlet a little zone where he could hang out, nice and safe, unless things went bad for me. And then he's pretty much going to be on his own anyway. I did a little bit of scoping out. Fortunately, there was a random wall I could hide behind nearby. At first I didn't see anybody, and two fellas popped out with bows. I caught one of them right quick with the gun, but didn't do a lot of damage. And he started shooting right at me. He caught me too. Right in the torso. Cracked my pelvis, I think. It was a right bit of pain. Hit me again in the torso. Did some damage to my rib cage. His buddy decided just to go nuts and charge me. And then he backed right off. Being that he was closer, wasn't as well concealed, I focused on trying to bring him down, and it didn't take long. I was pretty well hurt. Trogo ran by screaming, cursing me. I told him, man, you ain't doing any good in the world, being out here keeping prisoners. And I ended up shooting him dead, which I didn't feel bad for. They did beat me up pretty bad. I dropped my medicine, went about tending myself as best as I could. In all honesty, it didn't turn out that well, and it took half the day just to do it. There were some crazy creatures running around. I messed with one for a minute, being that I was a little dazed from all the injuries. I poked my head inside the building to see what they had. Wasn't much, in all honesty. Some kind of primitive air conditioning unit. They had left that prisoner a fair amount of food, though. I decided I was going to claim his bed, being that I'd hurt myself setting him free. And then I did free him. He was as happy as could be. He ran outside, skipping and jumping. Another fellow with his junk flopping everywhere. They left him a real nice looking bowl of stew, so I decided to eat that. While doing so, one of my wounds quickly had become infected. They must have smeared feces on their arrows or something, those bastards. Turns out, Constantin knew a thing about medicine, and he had found some wild plants, cut them down, and he went right over and took care of me with it. He was really happy to be free, and he did owe me a bit, being that I damn near killed myself trying to help him out. That stew sure was delicious, but the rest of me was feeling pretty awful. That infection didn't get tended terribly well despite the medicine he had found. So I slept for a little bit, but I didn't want to overdo it. I needed to get home. See about getting things back there taken care of again, if I could heal myself up. And we packed up as much stuff as we could, which certainly wasn't much in all honesty. But fortunately it was going to be a real quick trip home. All kinds of stuff had gone on when I was gone. Some cargo pods had fallen. The goodies those people had sent me had been laying out, going bad. And I guess it is what it is. We arrived back pretty quick. I certainly wasn't moving too fast, but I had developed an immunity to my infection. So I was feeling a little bit better in that regard. Walking in, I found a whole bunch of wolfskin just laying around, ripe for the taking. Being that nobody was in sight, despite my injuries, I packed it up, carried it on inside. Constantin put on my old junky hat. Decided he was going to eat some potatoes, which is fine with me. He took my spare bed, which is also fine. I thought maybe I'd make him some clothes, but we'll see. I wasn't feeling the best. Still hadn't laid down and rested since I'd been back. But I got to work on the clothes, made some tribal wear. It certainly didn't turn out well given my sickness and injuries. But some pemmican maybe make me feel better. I was in right bad shape. Certainly needed to sit and relax for a while, and that's what it did. The pain was pretty intense, I'll tell you that. I still wasn't anywhere near fully healthy. Despite that, thought maybe a little mining was in order. Constantin woke up, put on those junky clothes I'd made for him. And at that point, he finally got the message that he couldn't hang out. He's in much better shape than when I met him. He wasn't happy. Nah, neither was I really. Hammond had forced the guy to leave. So I decided to throw some horseshoes and see if I could make myself feel a little better. And then I was off to bed. Hamlet was out and about for a while, crazy guy that he is. Eventually he did come to bed though, right as I heard some cargo pods crash down. A whole bunch of thick elephant looking skin. Oddly in the same place that wolf skin had been. That wild man walking around nearby, he made me a little nervous. You never know if he's gonna snap and attack or not. I decided I'd try and tame that fella. First thing in the morning, it was off to grab some of that elephant skin. And right about that time a trader had shown up. I thought maybe I could sell him that elephant skin if I could get it all hauled back. Being as I was in pretty bad pain. When I returned, a little bit of food was in order. There's a bunch of trees in my way, right in the middle of my main walking path. I started cutting one down, then I decided to go do some trading. A guy probably took advantage of me. They did have a couple female Labradors, and I sure did think about getting Hamlet a partner. But in the end, I just didn't want to have extra mouths to feed, and I certainly didn't need a bunch of puppies running around. Pirates showing up to kill them, all that kind of stuff going on. I decided to build up a little bit of resource, some extra trees, some extra steel. And an incapacitated refugee called me at that point. She was a day away, and I did really want to get out and help, but I was still in pretty bad shape. So it didn't seem like it was going to be terribly likely at the moment. Pemmican supplies certainly weren't what they used to be, but I wasn't terribly worried about that. I set off, see if I could convince that wild, crazy, naked man to join me, at least for a little while. He didn't seem to understand a word I said, so I gave up for the day. Did a little bit of tidying in the storage room. Things seemed to be all over the place. And then it was back to tossing horseshoes. Nothing like a good game, build some skills, relax outside. I wasn't as happy as I'd like to be. I tied it up around the horseshoe pin right before going to bed. A trade caravan left sometime in the night. And first thing in the morning, I was off to that wild fella again. Told him all kinds of tall tales about how great it would be. Sure enough, he decided to join me. He had a crazy scar on his leg. That wasn't so much my problem. And I thought about making some more clothes here. It's been on my list of things to remake my own clothing. Instead, I decided I was going to get myself some research done. That did need to be my focus if I was going to get anywhere in the world. And with my injury, it'd be nice just to sit, relax. I ended up with a pretty bad scar on my torso. While researching, I decided maybe a little smoke leaf is in order. I got that planted. That'd help with my relaxation. Sometime that day, that wild man had wandered off again. I didn't even notice I was so engrossed, tinkering around at my little research bench. I was sad to see him gone, and it was bedtime anyway. This stupid scar was paining me a bit, but according to the directions, it came with that healer mech serum thing. That probably solved my scar issue. I decided to give it a go. Why not? And sure enough, I was back to 100% health and efficiency. Seemed like a bit of a waste, but I think it's just fine. After having a meal, I chilled out, thought about maybe doing some cleaning, but whatever. After that, I sat down at my research bench, figured out the art of smithing. Made another toque after that. Turned out better than my last one. For that, I was right happy. And some drugs. Crazy drugs, looked like cocaine. Fell right out of the sky. I set to making a whole new suit of clothes. I had the wolf skin. I had a bunch of wool laying around. And I had a bunch of cloth. The parka I made turned out pretty fabulous, I will say that. And at some point, I'll switch over. Hamlet had hauled in those drugs for me. The last thing for me to make, a pair of pants. Only thing I had left was cloth. And then I put all them new clothes on. Felt right fancy in my new getup. I thought it might be wise, make something in a color, keep me a little bit camouflaged. But it was what it was. It was high time I got to figuring something else out. And that was going to be my next focus. As I sat and researched, a woman passed by. I didn't even pay any attention. I researched all day. I was off to bed. Next morning was my usual pemmican. I do like the simple things in life, like tossing horseshoes and eating pemmican. Some big crazy animals came in while I was throwing those horseshoes. Couldn't tell you what the heck it was. A crazy, dangerous looking horn on its head though. So I decided I was going to steer clear, stay on inside doing research. This project seemed to be going pretty slow. I eventually taken a break, eat some food. But that's all I did all day long. As I was researching that evening, a couple fellas showed up. Hell bent on giving me the business. They weren't pirates, but they might as well have been. Some guy had a bunch of Molotov cocktails. Where the heck did he get gasoline? I figured my traps would keep me safe. They had no idea they were there. Sure enough, Mr. Molotov went down. I pursued that other fella, but he had some pretty decent armor on. I decided I was going to do my best to kill him. Could use some faster legs, I'll tell you that. Despite being a heavy fella, he was a good mover. I caught him a couple times with the gun. In the end, he was getting too far away from my house. And I didn't want to risk getting caught out at night. Hopefully, he wouldn't last long anyway. Good riddance. The world doesn't need that kind of fella around. So, after all that excitement, I was a little upset about the fact that I'd have to make a new trap. But fortunately, I'd stockpiled some steel for just this occasion. These steel traps do work significantly better than the wooden ones I was originally using. That's for dang certain. Walking by that fella, I decided to pick up his stuff. He had some decent medicine with him. And it wouldn't hurt to have some Molotovs around. You never know what use they could be. After digging him a grave, I was off to bed. And while sleeping, some fella contacted me. Name was Riggs, saying he's being chased. I decided I could help him out. Well, it wouldn't be too difficult. What with a nice secure area and all. So he came charging in. And he seemed like a right nice fella. Nice little top knot of hair on top of his head. Didn't seem to be dressed terribly well to be doing as much traveling as he probably was. That was his problem, not mine. The person chasing after him showed up shortly after that. And we just stood there, getting ready for him. She had a crazy good gun. That was going to be useful. I was going to try and keep that, not give it to Riggs when I sent him on his way. Of course, traps took care of her. But we were going to need another grave. I was right hungry. Haven't been woken up out of a dead sleep. Fortunately, Riggs is capable enough to dig a grave. A little bit of work I could offload. And I wasn't going to complain about that. So he dug the grave. Then he came back and buried that person that was chasing after him. After that, he's a nice enough guy to bury that other fella that tried to kill me. I decided just to take a walk. I sure could use some relaxation. Hang out outside the base. See the mess that those trade caravans make when they sit around milling about. Riggs had a little confusion about where to put the bodies. But there were only 2 graves. And there were only 2 bodies. So he figured it out before too long. Well, I got to rebuilding the traps. That fella was well capable. He got set up. Helped me rebuild the trap that last dude destroyed on the other side of the base. Saved me the hassle. And that is much appreciated. So I sat down. I went straight back to researching. Feel like it took Riggs forever to get the right amount of steel over there, and then he screwed up the job. I was at that point. I decided I'd just do it myself. I gave Riggs his walking papers. I was a little sad to see him go. I think he could have been a useful fella. But I wasn't too impressed with his construction ability. And whatever he'd done to that poor woman that got killed that was chasing after him, she certainly had the firepower to blow him away. I researched a bit more that day, and then it was off to bed. I was feeling pretty poor about all the people I'd sent away, as I was really lonely, being that it was nighttime. Hamlet never got the memo. He's having a good time running around as I was sleeping. And another night was passing by, fortunately peacefully, here on this crazy world.